Aiden and Sophia had built a life that felt unshakable. Their relationship, spanning 6 years, was the kind of love story people admired, steady, full of trust, and deeply intertwined. They met during their final year of college, and their bond only grew stronger through time. Now, at 29, they had everything they had ever dreamed of: stable careers, a beautiful apartment in the city, and the promise of a future together. Sophia worked as a senior editor at a prestigious magazine, her career flourishing after years of hard work. Aiden, on the other hand, had recently found success with his tech startup, something that took years of struggle and sacrifice. They had been through financial difficulties, career uncertainties, and personal losses, yet they remained each other's anchor. That's why, on their 6th anniversary, Sophia had never felt more secure in her love for Aiden. The evening was perfect. Aiden had planned a dinner at their favorite restaurant, the one where they had their first date. The candlelight flickered between them as the scent of wine and roses filled the air. "I can't believe it's been 6 years," Sophia said softly, twirling the stem of her wine glass between her fingers. "6 years of you putting up with me," Aiden teased, flashing the charming smile that always made her heart flutter. "You make it sound like it was hard," she laughed, shaking her head. Aiden reached for her hand across the table, his thumb tracing slow circles against her skin. There was something distant in his eyes, something unreadable, but Sophia brushed it off as stress from work. Little did she know, that night would be the last time she would look at him the same way. The next morning was like any other. Aiden left early for a meeting, kissing her on the forehead before slipping out the door. Sophia stayed back, taking the day off to work from home. As she sat down with her laptop, a notification popped up about storage space running low. She sighed, deciding to clear out old files to free up some space. Her fingers moved automatically as she sifted through folders. Old documents, work files, pictures from their vacations. It was a trip down memory lane. Then, something caught her eye: a hidden folder. The title was a random mix of letters and numbers, something easily overlooked. Curiosity sparked and she clicked it open. What she saw made her heart stop. Dozens of pictures, messages, videos, evidence of a secret she had never known existed. The first image was of Aiden, but he wasn't alone. A woman, unfamiliar yet intimately close to him, was in the frame. They were smiling, their faces inches apart, wrapped in each other's arms. Her stomach twisted. She clicked on a video. The voices were unmistakable. Aiden's laughter, the woman's giggles, the way they spoke to each other in soft, affectionate tones, tones that Sophia thought were meant only for her. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the messages. "I miss you. I wish things were different. Do you ever think about what we could have been?" Tears blurred her vision as she read the timestamps. 6 years ago, just a few months into their relationship. The messages spanned nearly a year, a secret love story hidden beneath the foundation of what Sophia had believed was an unbreakable bond. Her breath hitched. How could he have lied to her for so long? How could he have built a life with her while carrying this secret? Her fingers gripped the laptop as her mind spiraled. Had he ever really loved her? Had he only stayed with her out of guilt? Was she just a second choice? A sound from behind made her jump. The door opened and Aiden walked in, a cup of coffee in his hand. His face was relaxed, oblivious to the storm that had just torn through Sophia's world. "Hey, babe," he greeted, setting his keys on the counter. "You're up early." Sophia didn't move. Aiden frowned, noticing the way she clutched the laptop, her knuckles white. Then his gaze dropped to the screen. The color drained from his face. He knew. His grip on the coffee mug loosened, and before he could react, it slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. "Aiden," Sophia whispered, her voice raw, trembling. "What is this?" Aiden took a slow step forward, but she recoiled as if burned. "Sophia, I—" His voice cracked, his throat bobbing as he struggled for words. "How long?" she demanded, her voice rising. "Sophia, let me explain." "How long, Aiden?" she shouted, standing abruptly. Her chest rose and fell with ragged breaths as tears streamed down her face. Aiden exhaled shakily, running a hand through his hair. His silence stretched between them like a chasm, deep and unfixable. "A year," he admitted finally, his voice barely above a whisper. A sob tore through Sophia's throat. She covered her mouth as if trying to hold herself together, but it was useless. The pain was too much, the betrayal too deep. She had spent 6 years loving a man who had once given his heart to someone else, and he had never told her. Was I ever enough for you? She choked out. Aiden's face twisted in agony. You were more than enough, you are more than enough. Then why? Her voice broke. Why did you do this? He took a desperate step toward her, but she stepped back. It was a mistake. It was years ago, Sophia. It meant nothing. I ended it before I ever fell in love with you. The words shattered her completely. Before, she echoed, realization dawned on her. He hadn't loved her then. She had spent years believing in a love that had started with a lie. You should have told me, she whispered, her voice hollow. I deserved to know. Aiden reached for her hand, but she pulled away. I'm sorry, he murmured, his voice laced with desperation. Sorry doesn't erase 6 years of lies, she said, her tone void of emotion. She turned away, wiping her tears. I need space. Aiden flinched as if struck. Sophia, please? Leave, she cut him off. For the first time in 6 years, Aiden didn't fight. He swallowed his pleas, his regret, and slowly walked out the door. As it closed behind him, Sophia collapsed onto the couch, her sobs echoing through the empty apartment. The love of her life had been a lie, and now she had no idea what to do with the truth. The silence in the apartment was deafening. Sophia sat curled up on the couch, knees drawn to her chest, her mind a whirlwind of memories and questions. Every second that passed felt heavier than the last. Aiden had left, but his presence lingered like a ghost, haunting, unbearable, suffocating. Her phone lay beside her, buzzing every few minutes. Calls, messages, all from him. She couldn't bring herself to answer. How could she? How was she supposed to look at him the same way again, knowing that the foundation of their love was built on deception? The messages weren't stopping. Sophia, please talk to me. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. Just let me explain. I love you. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the phone, staring at the screen. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that the love they had built over the years was real. But doubt had already begun poisoning her heart. Before she could think further, a new message popped up. Not from Aiden, from her, the other woman. Sophia's breath caught in her throat as she hesitated before opening it. Rachel, I never meant to hurt you. If you want to talk, I'll tell you everything. Sophia felt her pulse quicken. She didn't even know Rachel's name until now. But the woman from the photos, the messages, the videos, she was suddenly real, and she was reaching out. Why? Sophia stared at the message for what felt like forever before standing up abruptly. She couldn't sit here drowning in her thoughts anymore. She needed air. Grabbing her coat, she slipped out of the apartment and into the cold evening air. The city was alive, people laughing, cars honking, the smell of street food wafting through the air. How ironic. The world kept moving as if nothing had changed, while hers was shattering piece by piece. Her feet carried her aimlessly until she found herself at her favorite cafe, the one where she and Aiden spent countless Sundays, sipping coffee and talking about the future. The memories stung now. She hesitated at the entrance, debating whether she should go inside. Sophia? A voice broke through her thoughts, and she turned sharply. Her heart stopped. Rachel stood a few feet away, watching her carefully. She was beautiful, the kind of effortless beauty that made people stare. But Sophia wasn't interested in that. All she could see was the woman who had once shared something with Aiden, something she never knew about. Rachel sighed. I was hoping we could talk. Sophia clenched her fists. And why would I want to do that? Rachel's expression didn't change. Because I know you have questions. Sophia didn't respond right away. She did have questions, more than she could count. After a long pause, she exhaled sharply. Fine. They found a quiet spot inside the cafe, sitting across from each other. Sophia's heart pounded as she studied the woman in front of her. Rachel stirred her tea slowly. I don't expect you to forgive me, but you deserve to know the truth. Sophia crossed her arms. Then tell me, everything. Rachel met her eyes, something like regret flickering within them. Aiden and I, we met in college. We were never really together, but we were something. We had this connection. Something that never turned into a real relationship, but we couldn't seem to let go of each other either. Sophia felt her nails dig into her palm. Rachel sighed. Then he met you. The words sent a sharp pain through Sophia's chest. Rachel hesitated. I won't lie to you. He was still talking to me when he started dating you. At first I thought it was just friendship, but it wasn't. We crossed lines. Sophia swallowed, forcing herself to stay composed. Rachel continued, her voice quieter now. He told me he had feelings for you, but he couldn't stop whatever we had, and for a while, I let it happen. I let myself believe he might still choose me. Sophia's stomach churned. Rachel's next words nearly broke her. He didn't end it immediately, Sophia. It went on for almost a year. Sophia's breath hitched. A year? Aiden had been with both of them for a year. I finally walked away, Rachel admitted. I told him I couldn't do it anymore. I cut him off completely. Sophia's voice was barely above a whisper. And then, Rachel gave a sad smile, and then he chose you. Sophia felt her heart crack all over again. He chose her. But not in the way she had thought. She had spent 6 years believing their love was pure, that it was never tainted. But the truth was, it had started as a choice, a decision between two women. Sophia shook her head, trying to push back the burning in her eyes. Why are you telling me this now? Rachel sighed. Because I know how much you love him, and I know how much this hurts. Sophia's throat tightened. Rachel gave her a long look. But I also know Aiden, and despite everything, he does love you. Sophia let out a bitter laugh. Love, how can I believe that after all of this? Rachel leaned forward slightly. Because he let me go, Sophia. And trust me, Aiden isn't the kind of man to let go of something easily. Sophia didn't know how to respond. Rachel pushed her tea aside and stood up. You don't have to listen to me, but if you love him, and you think this is worth fighting for, talk to him. Sophia stayed silent as Rachel turned to leave. Before walking away completely, Rachel hesitated at the door. For what it's worth, I really hope you find the answers you're looking for. Then she was gone. Sophia sat there staring blankly at the table. Her emotions were a storm inside her: anger, sadness, confusion. But underneath it all, a question lingered. Did she still love Aiden? And if she did, was their love worth saving? She wasn't sure, but she knew one thing for certain. She needed to see him. Sophia stood outside Aiden's apartment, her heart hammering against her ribs. She wasn't sure how she had gotten here, whether it was anger, confusion, or some stubborn part of her heart that refused to let go. But after speaking with Rachel, she knew she couldn't sit in the dark anymore. She needed answers. Her hand hesitated over the doorbell. Could she handle hearing the truth from Aiden's own lips? Before she could talk herself out of it, she pressed the button. A few moments later, the door swung open and there he was. Aiden looked exhausted, his hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept since the night she found out. His lips parted in surprise. Sophia, I need to talk to you. Her voice was firm, even as her chest ached. Aiden stepped aside quickly, letting her in. She walked past him, the familiarity of his apartment now feeling foreign. The place smelled like him, warm, safe, but she didn't feel safe anymore. He shut the door and turned to her. I didn't think you'd come. She folded her arms. I almost didn't. Aiden swallowed, his gaze filled with uncertainty. But you did. Sophia ignored the warmth in his voice and focused on why she was here. I met Rachel. His expression shifted immediately. He stiffened, his shoulders tense. You talked to her. Yes, and she told me everything. Aiden exhaled slowly, dragging a hand down his face. Sophia, tell me the truth. Her voice wavered slightly, but she stood her ground. I don't want excuses, no more lies. I deserve to hear it from you. Aiden nodded, his eyes filled with something she couldn't place. Regret, shame, fear. He took a deep breath. It's true, everything Rachel told you is true. The confirmation felt like a punch to the stomach, even though she already knew the answer. Sophia clenched her fists. Why, Aiden, why didn't you tell me? His gaze dropped to the floor. Because I was a coward, Sophia scoffed. That's not good enough. Aiden ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I was young, Sophia, stupid. I didn't know what I wanted back then. When I met you, everything changed, but I was still tangled up in Rachel. I didn't know how to walk away from her. Sophia's chest tightened. So you just strung us both along? Aiden flinched. I didn't mean to, I swear I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, she shot back. For a whole year, Aiden, a year where I thought I was the only one. He looked utterly broken. I know. The weight of his admission crushed her. She let out a bitter laugh. You know what hurts the most? That you never told me. That you let me believe we were perfect all these years. I was scared, Sophia. Aiden's voice cracked. I knew I had made a mistake, but by the time I realized how much I loved you, I was terrified that telling you the truth would make me lose you. Tears burned at the back of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. So instead, you built our relationship on a lie? I didn't want it to be a lie, he whispered. Everything after that first year, it was real. You are real. I've never loved anyone the way I love you. His words hit deep, but they weren't enough to erase the pain. Sophia inhaled shakily. You should have given me the choice, Aiden. You should have told me the truth back then, no matter the cost. Aiden nodded, his expression tortured. You're right, I should have, and I regret it every single day. A heavy silence filled the room. Sophia's mind was a storm of emotions. She had loved Aiden for so long, trusted him with every piece of her heart. But now she wasn't sure if she could ever look at him the same way. Do you still love me? Aiden asked quietly. The question shattered her. She wanted to say no. She wanted to scream that she hated him for what he did. But she couldn't, because love didn't just vanish overnight. Tears welled in her eyes, and for the first time since discovering the truth, she allowed them to fall. I don't know, Aiden. His face crumpled, pain flashing across his features. I'll do anything to fix this, Sophia. Just tell me how. She shook her head. I don't know if this can be fixed. Aiden took a shaky step toward her. Please, don't walk away from us. Sophia bit her lip hard, trying to stop the sob from escaping. I don't know what to do. Aiden reached for her, but she took a step back. Sophia, I need time, she whispered. I need to figure out if I can live with this. Aiden's eyes were desperate, pleading. I'll wait, however long it takes. Sophia nodded, though her heart ached unbearably. I should go. Aiden didn't try to stop her this time. He simply watched as she walked to the door, his entire being radiating sorrow. As she stepped outside, the cold air hit her, making the reality of everything sink in. She had spent 6 years loving Aiden. 6 years believing in their love. But now she didn't know if love was enough. Sophia didn't go home right away. Instead, she wandered the city streets, her mind a tangled mess of emotions. The air was crisp, the distant sounds of traffic blending into the hum of the city, but she barely noticed. She kept replaying Aiden's words in her head. Everything after that first year, it was real. You are real. I've never loved anyone the way I love you. But if it was real, why did it feel like everything had crumbled beneath her feet? Her love for him was tangled with years of trust, laughter, shared memories, things that now felt tainted. How could she separate the love from the betrayal? After what felt like hours, she finally found herself standing in front of her apartment building. With a deep breath, she climbed the stairs, unlocking the door and stepping inside. She barely had time to process anything before her phone buzzed. It was Olivia. Sophia hesitated before answering. Hey, she said, her voice hoarse. Sophia? Olivia's voice was filled with worry. Where the hell have you been? I've been calling you all day. Sophia swallowed. I was out. Olivia was quiet for a moment, then sighed. You went to see him, didn't you? Sophia closed her eyes. Yeah, I figured. I know you too well. There was no judgment in Olivia's voice, only understanding. So, what happened? Sophia sat on the edge of her bed, rubbing her temples. He admitted it, everything. He didn't try to lie or make excuses. Olivia scoffed. Well, that's the least he could do. Sophia let out a small, bitter laugh. Yeah. Silence stretched between them before Olivia spoke again, softer this time. How do you feel? Sophia's throat tightened. I don't know. Part of me is relieved that I finally know the truth. But the other part? She trailed off, her voice breaking. Still loves him, Olivia finished gently. A tear slipped down Sophia's cheek. Yeah. There was a pause before Olivia spoke again. Look, Soph, no one can tell you what to do, but you need to think about what you can live with. If you stay, can you ever really trust him again? And if you leave, can you live without him? Sophia wiped her tears. I don't know. And that was the worst part, she truly didn't know. She ended the call soon after, curling up under her blanket, exhaustion pressing down on her. Sleep didn't come easily, but when it did, it was restless, filled with flashes of the past. The next few days passed in a haze. Sophia tried to focus on work, on anything that would distract her, but Aiden was always there in the back of her mind. He didn't call or text, and she didn't reach out either. But on the 5th day, she found herself outside the cafe where they used to meet every Friday. It was muscle memory. Her feet had carried her here before she even realized it. And then she saw him. Aiden was sitting by the window, staring down at his coffee. He looked lost. The dark circles under his eyes hadn't faded, and there was a hollowness in his expression that made her chest tighten. Before she could decide whether to turn around, his eyes lifted and locked onto hers. Sophia's breath caught. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then slowly, Aiden stood, walking toward the door. She could have left. She should have, but she didn't. Instead, she let him approach. "Hi," he said softly. She swallowed. "Hi." Aiden hesitated, as if unsure whether she would stay or walk away. "Do you want to sit?" Sophia exhaled slowly before nodding. They sat in silence at first, the tension between them thick. Finally, Aiden spoke. "I didn't think I'd see you again." Sophia stared at her hands. "Neither did I." Aiden sighed, rubbing his jaw. "I've been a mess without you." Sophia's heart clenched, but she forced herself to stay composed. "You don't get to say that, not after what you did." "I know," he said quickly. I miss you." She clenched her fists. "You don't get to miss me, Aiden. You had me. You had 6 years with me." Aiden flinched. "I know." The weight of his guilt was visible in every part of him, but it didn't erase what he had done. Sophia looked out the window, watching people pass by, oblivious to the storm brewing inside her. "Why did you never tell me?" Aiden exhaled sharply. "Because I was afraid. I knew that if I told you, I'd lose you. And I was selfish. I wanted to keep you." She shook her head. "So you let me love you without knowing the full truth. You let me build my life with you, thinking we were unbreakable." Aiden's hands curled into fists. "I didn't deserve you." Sophia let out a humorless laugh. "No, you didn't." Silence fell between them again. Then, softly, Aiden asked, "Do you think there's any way you could ever forgive me?" Sophia closed her eyes. Forgiveness, was that even possible? She had spent 6 years loving him, and now she wasn't sure if she could spend even another second looking at him without feeling shattered. She opened her eyes, meeting his desperate gaze. "I don't know, Aiden." His expression crumpled. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again," she continued, voice shaking. "And without trust, what's left?" Aiden reached across the table, fingers grazing hers. "Love." A tear slipped down her cheek. "Love isn't always enough." Aiden swallowed hard. "Sophia, please." She stood abruptly, pulling her hand away. "I need time." Aiden rose as well. "I'll wait, for as long as it takes." Sophia looked at him, really looked at him. She could see the pain in his eyes, the remorse in every inch of him. But she also saw the ghost of the past, the boy who had once betrayed her, the man who had kept it from her for years. She had spent so long loving Aiden. But now, she needed to learn how to love herself more. Without another word, she turned and walked away. This time, Aiden didn't follow. And as she stepped out into the cold air, for the first time in 6 years, she felt free. Sophia didn't cry on the way home. She thought she would, but as she walked through the streets, the numbness in her chest felt heavier than any tears could. Her heart ached, but not with the sharp pain she had felt the night she found out the truth. No, this was different. This was a slow, quiet breaking, the kind that didn't come with sobs but with exhaustion. She had spent years loving Aiden, devoting herself to him, trusting him, planning a future with him. And now, she didn't know what to do with all that love. By the time she reached her apartment, Olivia was already there, waiting. The second Sophia stepped inside, Olivia pulled her into a tight hug. "I was worried," Olivia murmured. Sophia let out a shaky breath, leaning into her best friend's warmth. "I saw him." Olivia stiffened. "And," Sophia pulled back, walking over to the couch and sinking into it. "And he wants me to forgive him." Olivia scoffed. "Of course he does. He gets to live 6 years in peace while you're only now dealing with the betrayal." Sophia nodded, staring at the ceiling. "The thing is, I do still love him, and I hate that." Olivia sat beside her, taking her hand. "Soph, love doesn't just disappear overnight, but loving someone doesn't mean you have to stay." Sophia exhaled slowly. "I told him I needed time. And do you think time will change anything?" Sophia was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know," she admitted. "I don't know if I can ever look at him without remembering this pain." Olivia squeezed her hand. "Then don't force yourself to. You have nothing to prove. If leaving is what helps you heal, then leave. And if staying is what you want, then at least make sure it's what's best for you." Sophia nodded, feeling the weight of the decision pressing on her. The following weeks were a blur of routine. Work, sleep, repeat. Sophia kept herself busy, throwing herself into her projects, avoiding thoughts of Aiden as best she could. Some days were easier than others. Some days she woke up thinking about him, wondering what he was doing, wondering if he missed her as much as she missed him. But she didn't call. and he didn't either. It wasn't until 3 weeks later that she ran into him again, by accident. She had gone to the bookstore near her office, looking for something new to read. The bell chimed as she stepped inside, the familiar scent of paper and ink wrapping around her. And then she saw him. Aiden was standing near the poetry section, his fingers tracing over the spines of the books, lost in thought. Sophia's breath hitched. She could have left, could have turned and walked out before he saw her. But before she could make that choice, Aiden looked up. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, slowly, Aiden walked toward her. "Sophia," he said softly. She swallowed. "Hey." His eyes searched hers, hesitant. "How have you been?" Sophia considered lying, telling him she was fine, that she had moved on, that she barely thought about him. But she was tired of pretending. "I'm still figuring things out," she admitted. Aiden nodded, his expression unreadable. "I've been doing the same." Silence stretched between them. Then, Aiden reached into his coat pocket, pulling out a book. He hesitated before handing it to her. She glanced down at the title. "Love and Forgiveness, Poems of the Heart." Her throat tightened. Aiden ran a hand through his hair. "I've been reading a lot about love, about mistakes, about how to live with the consequences of your choices." He paused, meeting her gaze. "I know I can't undo what I did, Sophia, and I know you don't owe me anything, but I need you to know that I'll never stop regretting it." Sophia's fingers curled around the book, emotions warring inside her. Regret, guilt, love. Did any of those things change what had happened? "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Aiden." Her voice was quiet but firm. Aiden's jaw tensed, but he nodded. "I understand." Sophia looked at him then, really looked at him. He was still Aiden, still the man she had loved for years. But he was also the man who had broken her trust in a way that might never be repaired, and maybe that was enough of an answer. Taking a deep breath, she placed the book back into his hands. "Take care, Aiden." And then, without looking back, she walked away. This time, she knew she wasn't coming back. Sophia didn't cry when she walked away from Aiden. She thought she might, that maybe her chest would tighten, or that grief would consume her the moment she turned the corner. But instead, she felt something unexpected, relief. Maybe it was the closure she had been waiting for. Maybe it was the realization that even if love still lingered, it wasn't enough. Or maybe, just maybe, she was finally learning to let go. The following days were different. Sophia still woke up thinking about Aiden, but the weight of his absence wasn't as crushing anymore. She focused on herself. She started going to the gym, something she had always wanted to do but never made time for. She picked up cooking, experimenting with new recipes instead of ordering takeout every night. She even joined a book club, one that wasn't about love stories because, frankly, she was done with those for a while. Slowly, she was rebuilding, one piece at a time. One evening, Olivia barged into Sophia's apartment with a bottle of wine and a mischievous grin. "It's been months," Olivia announced, setting the wine down. "It's time to get back out there." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Back out where?" Olivia rolled her eyes. "Dating, obviously," Sophia groaned. "Live." "Nope, don't live me. You're not spending the rest of your life being bitter about Aiden. You deserve to be happy." Sophia sighed, leaning against the counter. "I'm not bitter, I don't think I'm ready." Olivia crossed her arms. "And how will you know when you are?" That made Sophia pause. She didn't have an answer, because truthfully, she didn't know. "I'm not saying you have to marry the next guy you meet," Olivia continued. "Just go on a date, have fun, remember what it's like to be you without him." Sophia hesitated. Then, reluctantly, she muttered, "Fine, one date." Olivia grinned. "That's my girl." The date was fine. The guy, Ethan, was sweet. Charming, even. He worked as a graphic designer, had a golden retriever, and was passionate about photography. He made her laugh. But when he reached for her hand across the table, Sophia pulled away. Not because she was thinking about Aiden, but because she wasn't ready. Ethan, thankfully, was understanding. "I get it," he said with a small smile. "Take your time." And that was when Sophia realized something important. She was moving on, not by forcing herself into a new relationship, but by acknowledging that healing wasn't a race. One evening, weeks later, Sophia found herself at a park she hadn't visited in years. It was the same park where she and Aiden used to sit for hours, talking about everything and nothing. The same park where he had once held her close on a cold winter night, whispering promises he had never kept. She sat on a bench, watching the sunset. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to remember, without anger. Just memories, just moments, just a chapter of her life that had ended. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Aiden. Aiden, I know I said I'd stop reaching out, but I wanted to say one last thing. I hope you find happiness, Sophia, even if it's not with me. Sophia stared at the screen for a long time, then with a soft exhale, she typed a response. Sophia, I hope you do too, Aiden. She hit send. And just like that, she let go. Months passed, seasons changed, and with them, so did Sophia. She no longer woke up with the weight of Aiden's betrayal pressing against her chest. She no longer replayed their past over and over, searching for the moment where everything had gone wrong. Instead, she focused on what lay ahead. She had thrown herself into her work, earning a promotion that she had once only dreamed of. She had deepened her friendships, surrounding herself with people who truly cared about her. Most importantly, she had learned to enjoy her own company. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was living. One evening, Olivia dragged her to a rooftop party. Come on, Soph, you've been a hermit for too long. I literally went to brunch with you yesterday. Yeah, but that doesn't count. Brunch is a basic human right, this is a party. Sophia laughed, but didn't argue. She had promised herself she'd start saying yes to new experiences. The rooftop was decorated with string lights, casting a golden glow over the crowd. Music played in the background, just loud enough to fill the silence without being overwhelming. Sophia sipped on her drink, watching as Olivia disappeared into the crowd. And that's when she saw him. Not Aiden, someone new. He stood near the edge of the rooftop, looking out at the city's skyline. He had an easy confidence about him, the kind that wasn't forced or arrogant. Sophia wasn't sure what made her walk over, but she did. You know, people usually come to parties to socialize, she teased, standing beside him. He turned, surprised, before smiling. Guilty as charged. His voice was warm, steady. I'm Noah, he said, offering his hand. Sophia. They shook hands, and for the first time in a long time, Sophia felt something she hadn't expected. A spark. They talked for hours, about everything and nothing. She learned that Noah was a travel photographer, always chasing the next adventure. That he had a dog named Luna. That he had once gotten lost in Rome for an entire night and still thought it was one of the best experiences of his life. He listened when she spoke, genuinely interested in what she had to say. It was refreshing. By the end of the night, he asked for her number, and for the first time in years, she gave it without hesitation. Their first date was simple. A walk along the river, followed by coffee at a small cafe. It wasn't extravagant, but it didn't need to be. With Noah, things felt easy. There was no pressure, no expectations, just two people getting to know each other, one conversation at a time, and yet Sophia hesitated, not because she didn't like him, but because part of her was still scared. She had trusted before, she had loved before. And look where that had led her. Noah seemed to sense her hesitation. I don't expect you to have everything figured out, he said one evening, as they sat on a park bench. I just want to get to know you, no rush, no pressure. Sophia exhaled. You're too patient for your own good. He grinned. Or maybe you're worth the wait. She felt her heart skip, and for the first time in years she allowed herself to hope. It didn't happen overnight. There were moments of doubt. Moments where she wanted to pull away, to retreat into the safety of solitude. But Noah never rushed her. He was steady, patient, and slowly, piece by piece, she let him in. She told him about Aiden, not in a way that gave the past power, but in a way that acknowledged it. She told him about the betrayal, the heartbreak, the years it had taken to heal. And instead of pity, Noah simply nodded. Thank you for telling me, he said softly. That was it. No empty promises, no grand gestures, just understanding. And that was enough. A year later, Sophia stood in front of the mirror, smoothing out the fabric of her dress. It wasn't a wedding dress, but it was special. She was meeting Noah's family for the first time, and as she looked at herself, she realized something. She was happy, not because she had found someone new, but because she had found herself first. Noah was a part of her life. But he wasn't the reason she had healed. She had done that on her own. She smiled at her reflection, feeling lighter than she had in years. Then she grabbed her purse and stepped out the door, towards a new chapter. A new beginning, one where she was finally free.